The beauty of speedrunning video games is that you can get people to care about almost anything. Sometimes a lot of people, especially if the game has Mario or Zelda in its title, but in my opinion, the more fascinating cases are the games that you'd think would have absolutely no business having a competitive scene. Games like Cooking Mama, games like LEGO Star Wars, and even games like Wii Sports. But by now, even Wii Sports speedruns have nearly gone mainstream. If there's more of this hiding out there, the first place to look would be Wii Sports' twin sister, Wii Play. Wii Play is weird, though. It's memorable, but also nondescript. It's a game that lets you sit there and do nothing, but also demands perfection. It's one of a kind. Wii Play has had a speedrun leaderboard since 2016, and while the first half of its lifespan was desolate, a small community of runners put in the work to bring it to new frontiers. The world record progression of Wii Play speedruns has become a much more interesting story than anyone ever expected. Today, I will be telling the story of its craziest year yet. Tanks is probably the most beloved of the 9 minigames in Wii Play. After all, it is the only 4 out of 4 on the Scott the Woz Wii Play minigames scale. The speedrunning implications are clear. Destroy the enemy tanks as fast as possible. And succeeding requires every element of an exciting speedrun. Specific strategies, raw skill, and just a little bit of luck. For a long time, the gold standard for tanks runs was a 20 mission completion by Timba in 7:57, the first sub-8. This run was solid for its time, and it stood as the world record for over 3 years. However, considering a couple of unfortunate deaths on missions 8 and 14, and some tedious back-and-forth shootouts, the time could clearly go lower. Even Timba's own sum of best segments, which was only calculated from 4 segments, was nearly 40 seconds faster than their final time. Over the years, Jack Kingsman and 12 Kelvin made major improvements to the record. Going into 2023, one goal was clear: sub 7 minutes. But the person who got it wasn't Jack, Kelvin, or Timba, it was Cole O. See, Cole O, also known as Cole the Gamer, mainly plays games casually. He just got so good at Wii Play Tanks that he started setting untouchable speedrun world records. Part of what makes his run so good, apart from not dying a single time, is his ability to evenly fan out shots to ensure he hits a moving target. Skills like that, along with genius strats like this double mind chain reaction, those are what it takes to set yourself apart in this category. Cole's record of 6:49 stood for almost exactly a year, and was actually only broken while I was writing the script for this video. But it doesn't stop there, because Wii Play lied to you. The 20th level, labeled in big bold text as the final mission, is not the final mission whatsoever. Not even close. If you beat it and then beat the first 20 missions again afterwards, you can continue all the way to mission 100. And when you do that, not only does it quintuple the length of the run, things go from a little bit random to every run of Wii Play Tanks is personalized. In the majority of missions, level layouts and tanks colors aren't fully predetermined. Dealing with that in a speedrun is a monster of a task, but Cole has done it. Just one day before his sudden 20 missions record, he got the records for both 100 missions and 50 missions. Those times were 44:07 and 18:48 respectively. We'll circle back to tanks later, but for now, that's where it stands. So, cutscenes. Specifically, unskippable cutscenes. Downtime in games that forces you to sit there and watch. There are a few infamous examples of long cutscenes in speedruns, and runners figuring out ways around them, but honestly, cutscenes are hiding everywhere in games. Even Wii Play. In the medals categories, which involve getting one of a given medal throughout all 9 minigames, runners must sit through this cutscene in order to, actually get the medal. This is because you have to start the run from a fresh me, so when you get enough points for a medal in any game, it'll naturally be in your high scores, which makes this animation play. It's only a few seconds long, but it adds up when you have to watch it 9 times. Sadly, there's just nothing you can do to get a medal without getting a high score. Or is there? See, you might think Wii Play is a simple game with nothing to hide, and for most purposes you'd be right. But what you might not have remembered is the very first time you start Wii Play, it makes you unlock each game in order before you can play them all. It turns out that when the game is in this semi-locked state, you can't collect any medals, no matter how high you score, and that's where things get interesting. Here's an example. Find Me tracks points by how many levels you clear. There are 99 levels total, but a platinum medal only requires 80. Let's say you unlock Find Me from a new save file and then clear every level 5 times. After you finish unlocking every game, you can start a platinum medals run on this Mii because you didn't get any medals from your previous Find Me scores. But when you get to Find Me, you'll only end up clearing 80 levels, which won't be in your top 5 scores. So the animation doesn't play. You can apply this method to all 9 games, saving about 27 seconds. This is called Score Skip, and the first run to use it was a 2809 in silver medals set on April 11th. We'll talk more about silver medals in a little bit, but first we need to talk about the person who had the record before this. This person's main focus has always been the medal categories, which will be their main role in this video as well, but the story starts with something even longer. The biggest reward in Wii Play is often thought to be a platinum medal, but like I mentioned before, sometimes it's possible to go higher than the platinum requirement. Sometimes much higher. Meet highest achievements, a category where you must get the highest score in each minigame that the game uniquely recognizes. On top of all platinums, this includes clearing 99 levels in Find Me, 100 missions in Tanks, all levels in Pose Me, all scarecrows in Charge, and last but certainly not least, getting 999 points in table tennis. Only one man has dared to take on this challenge in one sitting, and his name is SM Midi. On April 17th, Midi got a new highest achievements record of 311.34. Tanks and table tennis occupied almost 2/3 of the total runtime, which was less than his previous attempt thanks to some major time save, but it's still an extremely tedious category thanks to these games. It's worth noting that the time could be reduced significantly if there's anyone out there who can consistently get 999 in table tennis without pausing, but that's one of the hardest things you can do in this game. I mean, look at this. I don't think I've ever focused this hard in my life. This isn't where Midi's story ends. Far from it. But for that, we're gonna have to dive deeper into the medals categories, and I have to admit that I never fully explained what a medal is. In Wii Play, if you reach a certain score requirement in a minigame, you're awarded with a shiny token recognizing your accomplishment. Depending on how high your score is, you can either get bronze, silver, gold, or platinum. Achieving all 9 of a certain medal rank will give you this celebratory message. Doing that in a speedrun is notoriously well liked, because the player can choose how much they want the game to directly challenge them on top of the existing challenge of speedrunning in general. But no one likes medals categories quite like Midi does. At this point in time, Midi's main claim to fame was his record of 39.38 in gold medals. He thought he could do better. He wanted to do it all. So he got to work. Two world records in the same hour. On April 29th, Midi achieved a 1926 in bronze medals and a 2722 in silver medals. With a decent enough start but a Wii Remote mishap in Tanks, the bronze run was looking dicey, but he clutched out the record by half a second. The silver run, on the other hand, crushed his old time by a full minute and raised the bar for the category significantly. In just one day, he went from having one to all but one of the medals world records. For now, that's where things stood. You know, some games are just begging to be speedrun. Take Mario Kart, for instance. The game's only objective is to go fast. There's a timer within the game itself. But what if I told you Wii Play had its own Mario Kart? That is, if the cart was a cow and everything was made of yarn. Charge is a full-fledged cow racing experience where you dodge fences, knock down scarecrows, and get to what I can only assume is a farm at the end of the course. And yes, there's an in-game timer, but why? Well, the points in a game of Charge are based on the number of scarecrows you knock down plus a time remaining bonus. So yes, the game directly incentivizes going fast, but it doesn't make it easy. See, much like other racing games, if you want to turn more than about 5 degrees without losing all your speed, you have to drift. But unlike Mario Kart, you can't just push a button to do so. Charge is pure motion controls. A drift, also known as a brake turn, looks like this. Many people have tried to master this technique and few have succeeded, but one of them stands far above the rest, and his name is Theon C, or as we've nicknamed him, Theon. Theon can only be described as built different at Wii Play Charge. He's held the any % record for 4 years straight, whittling it down from a low 40 to a high 40 to a low 41 by the beginning of 2023. Higher is better in this case, because the game's timer counts down. On May 5th, he lowered the record to a 41.350 using a new strategy. If you time it right, you can drift across the grass right here while maintaining your speed. This tighter line shaved 0.2 of a second off the previous record, which is honestly a lot in Charge terms. But Theon has never stopped there. Whenever he improves his laser-precise cow riding, he applies it to a longer category, all games. It's exactly what it sounds like, complete each game as fast as possible, and that's exactly the issue with it. Many other speed games have the privilege of being able to leverage a flashy any % category. It is easy, for example, to explain to someone why it's cool that someone beats Super Mario Odyssey in under an hour. You know, does he look familiar to you guys? Nah, must be a coincidence. It is not easy, on the other hand, to explain why it's cool to try to race through all 9 games in Wii Play in a row, especially when that includes activities like failing immediately in Find Me, failing immediately in Table Tennis, failing immediately in Pose Me, failing immediately in Tanks, sitting there for 2 minutes in Laser Hockey, and sitting there for 2 minutes in Fishing. To be fair, I guess a couple of the games have room for optimization. There's a bit of strategy you can employ in Shooting Range, and obviously there's Charge. And if those were the only 8 games in Wii Play, an all-game speedrun would be Charge with some extra steps, and there's a decent chance it wouldn't even have a leaderboard. But it seems like I'm forgetting something. 1 in 60? Haha, try 1 in 60 million. 14 years to sink 1 more ball. No one has ever done it. How? Why? Why is it so hard? If you've made it this far into a video about Wii Play, I can only imagine you've watched this video about Wii Play. If you haven't, this may make more sense if you start there. But if you have, you understand why billiards is a nightmare. Going for the all games world record is metaphorically as follows. Roll a 2,000-sided die. If it lands on 2,000, you might be able to get your run past the first split. That sounds horrific because it is. Why would anyone ever want to do that? Well, in Wii Play, we do it anyway. By May 2023, the all games record was a 10:03 by the man himself. A record that had stood for over a year at this point, but was so tantalizingly close to sub 10 minutes. Now, with a new Charge record under his belt and some recently found Pose Me optimizations at his disposal, Theon was finally ready to make a return, and soon enough the billiards gods smiled upon him. But divine luck is no match for human error. A simple menuing mistake, losing a fraction of a second, would cause Theon to miss sub 10 by a fraction of a second. A 10 flat .167. His journey wasn't quite over yet. At this point in the video, I've touched on all 6 of the main categories in the game. Almost. The category I've been referring to as All Games is actually called All Games NG+, which means you complete all the games after having them all already unlocked. In All Games NG, you start from a new game save file, and the goal of the run is to unlock all the games. For speedrun purposes, it's the same thing as NG+, but because you have to do the games in order, you can only reset to billiards every 6 minutes instead of every 10 seconds. You understandably may be thinking, isn't that a little stupid? Why does that even exist? And yes, I get it, but there are over 50 runs of the category at this point, it has historical significance, and besides, I'm not here to debate the viability of speedrun objectives, I'm just here to talk about the times people achieve. The next advancement in this category was fueled by a strategy we call fast pose Pose Me. The goal of Pose Me is to pop these falling bubbles before they reach the bottom of the screen. If they do reach the bottom, you lose one of 3 lives, and losing all 3 will end the game. But in an all-games run, we actually want to make that happen as fast as possible. There's not much we can do to make the bubbles fall faster, but there is something we can do to make them spawn lower. If you pop the first bubble on a given round, the next one will either spawn higher or lower. For a while, we treated this as a risk you can choose to take, something that can either save time or lose time depending on pure luck. But what we realized is that if the next bubble spawns higher, you can simply pop it again to almost guarantee a lower spawn. If you can react quickly enough, it turns out that the time saved from starting the bubbles lower will greatly outweigh the time lost from popping extra bubbles. People wanted to take advantage of this time save, but the All Games NG Plus record was approaching uncontestable, especially since Theon used Fast Pose Me in his recent 10.00, so public interest turned to NG, at which point the world record was held by me, actually, meaning it couldn't be that hard to beat. The only obstacle now was getting a decent billiards, and on May 20th, this happened. Yes, you saw that right. A 5-ball break in an NG run, something completely unheard of up to this point. This person finished out the run and got an 11:45, crushing what anyone thought was even possible. Sometimes things just go perfectly. The last record in May was another bronze medals time. Mitty knew his run had enough time save in Find Me and tanks that he could improve it even with a less than ideal billiards, and indeed he finished out at 19:11 on May 27th. Unsatisfied, Mitty continued doing runs and got the first record of June as well, getting a better billiard split but suffering some critical time loss to Find Me's infamous 8th level. The run ultimately concluded in a 19:09 set on June 7th. Sub 19 was looking more than possible if the stars could align. Oh yeah, speaking of stars aligning. It took a 6-ball break and a few quick intentional fouls, but Theon was back in business. This run was fast. Even a misstart boost in charge wouldn't be enough to throw it off course. He barreled onward. The only thing that could be stopped was the timer. I'll let him speak for himself.
It's been done. I got sub 10. It's a 9:57. Yeah.
On June 10th, 2023, every game in Wii Play was completed in under 10 minutes, a mythical milestone and a monumental mental barrier destroyed. It's hard to express how hard this is. Even if you get the craziest billiards shot of your life, you have to clear the rest of the table with the knowledge that if you mess up, you're gonna have to get the sequel to the craziest billiards shot of your life. And you may have to turn that into a pentology before you pull off a run where you adequately drive this cow that has weirder controls than Eminem's kart racing. It adds up to a nightmare, but Theon finally woke up. With his newfound freedom, Theon returned to a passion project, Charge 100%. See, we've been mainly focusing on just racing to the end, but we haven't been paying these scarecrows much attention. The goal of Charge 100% is to finish as fast as possible while knocking down every scarecrow. This is where Charge speedruns get really interesting. 100% especially accentuates how optimized the pathing has become. You can see runners barely grazing the edges of these lines of scarecrows to get the tightest line possible, the fastest time possible, and incidentally the highest score possible, because what we're doing here is actually just the goal of Charge in the first place. To no one's surprise, Theon held the 100% record at this time with a 39.14. While he was decompressing after his sub 10 NG+, he posted this screenshot, a 39.38 that he didn't even record, that he replicated 30 minutes later. Keep in mind that at this point in time, no one else even had a 36, while he was pushing into 39 territory like a hot knife cutting through butter. He picked up a 39.43 the next day, claiming he would probably stop at a 5x, which no one believed for a second, but he did get it 2 days later, and that is where he left the category, for now. There was one more piece of unfinished business Theon had to attend to while he was still home for the summer. You may recall that before Mitty's breakthrough into bronze medals, Theon held the record. That run was done well before a score skip was found. It was about time Theon came back to the category to see what he could do with the new time save, and he he wasted absolutely no time in doing so. On June 24th, in 2 days of attempts, he had a new world record of 1906, so close to sub-19 once again, but not quite yet. That's the end of June, but allow me to go back in time for a second, because there is one thing I skipped over. We've talked about Tank's 20 missions, 50 missions, and 100 missions, so it shouldn't be too surprising that there's a 10 missions category as well. But did you know there's one for 5 missions? The run is a minute long and it's a little silly, but it's still competitive. In fact, 104.033 by ZJ Rods had been standing as the record for almost 3 years, but out of nowhere, on June 16th, a runner named Yuzuna27 lowered it by almost a second. There's not much I can say about this run, it's just really fast. I mean, look at this mission 4, I can't even finish the sentence before they hit all the tanks. It seems there's a growing trend in really good tanks runners who have never submitted a speedrun other than tanks. Well, except maybe Crossy Road. At the beginning of July, Mitty held the middle 2 medal world records. At this point, you might expect him to return to bronze, but he had been looking in the other direction. Platinum medals, colloquially known as All Plats, has undoubtedly the richest history of any category in Wii Play. That won't fit within the scope of this video, but if you're interested in a deeper dive, a certain someone is working on a full world record progression that will be linked in the description as soon as it comes out. For our portion of the story, we're going to need to start with the longest line on this graph, a 105.39 by Murasaki. The same Murasaki from other monstrous world records like Platinum medals in Wii Play Motion, All Stamps and All Superstar class in Wii Sports Resort, and Wii Music 100%. Set on August 28, 2020, his 105.39 was widely considered the best anyone could do, even after Mayrink put together a segmented best theoretical run that clocked in at a 59.53. In fact, over the course of nearly 3 years, no one really tried to contest this record. It was one of those times that felt like it was permanently engraved into the top of the leaderboard. Mitty was determined to change that, and the first place he looked was tanks. In order to get a platinum in tanks, you need to complete the first 30 missions. But you might remember from earlier that the game doesn't let you go past the first 20 until you complete them once. So in a Plats run where you start with a fresh me, you have to first clear 20 missions and get a gold medal, then go back and do those missions again, then proceed forward and clear mission 30 for the platinum. Due to this phenomenon, tanks occupies a large portion of the speedrun, usually taking up about a third of the total runtime. Murasaki was known for his controversial decision to do tanks last, preferring to get the shorter games out of the way first. He did eventually move Find Me earlier in the run because it has aspects of randomization that can kill a run instantly, but tanks remained the last split in his 105.39. Mitty knew he'd have to make tanks a priority, and by doing it earlier, he could allow himself to go for riskier strategies that were typically only done in individual tanks runs, and he sure did pay the price.
Yep, good. Ah! Please just die! Oh my god. Oh no! Gotta do it. Ah, no! I don't know, I didn't know if he was looking to like borrow a Wii or something. Oh my god.
But day in and day out, Mitty started up his stream and did attempts, not willing to let his practice go to waste. Eventually, something had to give.
That can't be it. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god.
On July 4th, Mitty snagged the world record by 2 minutes. To put that into perspective, the easiest advantage he could gain over Murasaki's record was score skip, which is 27 guaranteed seconds of time save. Even if he hadn't done score skip, he would have still gotten not only record, but also 103. It gets crazier still when you realize this run lost 2 minutes to a failed round of table tennis. It could have been a 101. You know your run is good when even Murasaki himself is wondering how you did it. With Plats out of the way, Mitty was back to 3 out of 4 medal records, and everyone was expecting that he'd return to bronze. But no one was expecting this.
Four break, 5 break, 6 break. Oh no, wait, no it is. No way, oh my god, no way, no way. Ain't no way we just got a 7.
The second ever 7 break, the new fastest completion of billiards ever, and the first ever 72 score. Something all games runners could only dream of. And that's incredible. But what do you do now? At this point, most people would say, never mind, this is an all games run, because at least then they could almost guarantee themselves a PB, or even a world record. But MIDI didn't care about all games. MIDI didn't believe a 7 break was too good for a medals run. And so, in the face of the entire rest of the run, any part of which could kill his pace instantly, he kept his eyes on the prize. He actually did it. In 1835, beating the previous record by 31 seconds. It may interest you to learn that this situation had happened before. The first ever 7 break and a former billiards record had both happened during platinum medals attempts, and both runners carried on with the runs. But due to the nature of all plats, no one really expected anything to come from them, and nothing did. So MIDI's run was a truly unique accomplishment. When something like this happens, people often wonder if the category is dead, figuratively speaking, but that's not the case here. If Theon got this billiards in an all-games attempt, then sure, there's a decent chance he'd get a record that no one would want to try to beat for at least a few years. Bronze medals is not like that because there's so much more leniency in every game, so rest assured that competition is alive and well. However, this run did finally give MIDI the medals sweep, all 4 medals world records at the same time. This was the first time anyone had ever done this since Jay in 2018, and just in the nick of time too, because it wouldn't last long. While he was doing his patented silver medals victory lap, improving his record by about 20 seconds thanks to a stellar find me, Murasaki was back, and he was locked in. No one really knew what to expect when Murasaki went live with Plat's attempts on July 13th, but after a solid find me, he suddenly had a run that looked promising, and with each passing split, he stayed on track.
If I don't lose any time in tanks, I'm getting world record.
Unfortunately, that's exactly where things went sour. With a few unfortunate deaths in missions 6, 12, 15, 16, and 19, the chances of a record were dwindling. He wasn't going to let that stop him, but now was the time to focus. A 103.20, retimed afterward to a 103.19. Murasaki was back and better than ever. In his own words, to get world record back in just 9 days is amazing. But he knew 102 was on the horizon, and so did MIDI. After a quick warm-up with Medal Marathon, which is a run of every medal in one sitting, it was safe to say he was back on the grind. Going live several times a week with Plat's attempts, as well as tanks practice, it wasn't long before he got back on a run. It was pretty far behind out of tanks, but he knew he could cancel that out with his table tennis time save, and he ultimately clutched out a 103.07 to finish off July. Heading into August, the pressure for a 102 was on. It looked like it was anyone's game, but this was the point where Murasaki decided to move tanks earlier in his splits, and that paid off. On August 2nd, he completed a 102.44. This was a pretty solid run, but he wanted to push himself to go faster. He continued with attempts throughout the month of August to no avail, as MIDI temporarily shifted his focus to Tanks 100 and gold medals. For a little while, the Platts record remained stagnant. However, MIDI did manage to improve his golds time at the end of the month, setting the first record in the category in almost a year. It was clear that his extensive practice in tanks and platinums in general was paying off, even in other categories. Going into September, MIDI immediately shifted his focus back to Plats, because he wasn't done either. Rather quickly, just 4 days into the month, he found himself on a run that was on pace for not just a 102, but a low 101, and then this happened.
Oh, for God's sake.
Regardless, he managed to get a new record of 102.13, and that started turning some gears in his brain. If it was still possible to get sizable world records without getting every platinum first try, what else was possible? On September 16th, he went live with a custom clip comparison that no one had ever dared to create, 59-59. He was comparing not to his personal best, but to a theory, a dream, and an absurdly hard one at that. Some people thought he was crazy, but the world could not be prepared for what was about to happen.
How much have I done? Is that enough? It might be enough. I think it's enough. I think that's sub-hour. I think that's sub-hour. That's sub-hour. That's it. That's sub-hour. Oh my god. Oh my god, it's home. Oh my god, it's done. Oh my god. There's no way. There's no way. Oh, there's no way. There's no way. There's no way. Oh my god.
With possibly the single most clutch last split in the history of Wii Play speedrunning, Mitty had done the unthinkable. Every platinum medal in under 1 hour. This run beat his previous record by over 2 minutes, his sub-hour comparison by 7 seconds, and even the 2021 theoretical sub-hour video by 1 second. A truly poetic feat. As Mitty said in the description of the run, this could be one of the hardest sub-hours in the Wii series. It is beatable, of course, but it would take an incredible amount of patience. It was at this point that people started noticing that a lot of world records were being set in 2023. All 6 of the main categories had seen a new record within the year, as well as many of the miscellaneous ones. In fact, the only categories that hadn't yet gotten a record in 2023 were all but one of the Find Me categories, One Player Tanks 10 missions, all the Two Player Tanks categories, and all achievements, which is a run I'll explain when we get to it. With there being such an unusually high amount of motivation for such a small community, Mitty announced that he was placing cash bounties for world records on all 9 of these remaining categories, with the hope that this would motivate people to go for a full community sweep before 2024 began. He kicked off the action by getting a new record of 1650 in Find Me 99 levels on September 18th. He wasn't even expecting to do so, but it made sense that he was able to take advantage of how much Find Me he had to practice for Plats, and as we rolled into October, Murasaki intended to do the same.
I think that's world record. Yes, I did. That's a 117. I just beat 10 levels worth. That's 242. That is 242 20 levels. That is another world record. Holy sh! Ah! By 1 second! By 1 second! Oh!
In just a span of 10 days, Murasaki snagged all 5 Find Me world records, achieving a sweep of his own. He seems to be one of those runners that can ultimately accomplish almost anything they put their mind to. Only 5 categories remained that hadn't seen a world record in 2023. That wasn't the only thing that happened within these 10 days, though. Theon was back for fall break, and that can only mean one thing. You know, just a chill new 100% record. Why not? He refused to stop there, though. He continued with his 2 AM attempt sessions, and in just 2 days, he pushed it even lower.
$39.80 without any fence boosts.
This run shook the expectations of many. Was it really possible to get a perfect game of charge with 40 seconds remaining on the timer? Theon was determined to find out, but he was already halfway through his week off. On October 15th, he had one last chance. A 39.91, just 6 frames away from the ultimate charge achievement. So unbelievably close, but his break was ending. The 40-second time would have to wait. The last two records of October were set by MIDI, the first being a small improvement to Tank Solo 10, bringing the total of unbeaten records down to just 4. The second was a 26-43 in silver medals set on October 30th. At first glance, this might seem like business as usual. Everyone had been expecting a 26 in this category after he had gotten a 27-01 a few months earlier. However, one thing in particular made this run special.
Yes!
What was that? Let's watch that again in slow motion. What MIDI's doing here is sending a shot over to the stationary enemy tank, waiting, and then perfectly timing a shot against this wall so that his tank and the enemy tank explode on the same frame. Normally, when you die in tanks, your life counter decreases by 1 and you respawn in the same mission. But if you die on the same frame that you complete a mission, the game decreases your life counter and advances you to the next level at the same time. You may be wondering, why is that useful? Well, in a medals run, you want to be done with tanks as soon as you clear the necessary mission for a given medal, which means after you clear that mission, you have to burn through the rest of your lives. That means if you can decrease your life counter while not losing any time, you can decrease the amount of time you spend intentionally dying at the end of the segment, saving 8 seconds per life lost. And that's exactly what the strategy does. This is called a frame-perfect death, or an FPD, and it used to only be done in tool-assisted speedruns. MIDI's 26-43 silver medals was the first human run to ever pull it off, which sets a daunting precedent for the game going forward. If the medals meta starts revolving around FPDs, runners very well may need to start attempting multiple of them in their tank segments if they want to compete at a world record level. We're not quite at that point yet, and we certainly weren't in 2023, but it's definitely the next thing to keep an eye on in the medals world. It's common in speedrunning for a big new world record to bring back an old contender. We already saw it happen with Murasaki, but what if I told you it happened the other way around too? Even in a game like Wii Play, an accomplishment like Murasaki's Find Me sweep won't fly under the radar, especially not to Sir Goku 1. See, Sir Goku 1 was known for holding records in Find Me 50 and 99, but he hadn't submitted a run since 2021. Some people probably suspected that he just left the game along with other Find Me legends like Rallis and McKitty. And to be fair, that's not too far-fetched. Many people struggle to keep getting enjoyment out of what they feel is a glorified Where's Waldo. But with Sir Goku, there's one key difference. He may be the first speedrunner in history to get ahead by having friends. Out of all the insane strats I've explained throughout this video, this is definitely the most creative. Don't get it twisted either, this isn't a multiplayer run. There's one controller in the room. The other two people have pointer sticks, and they're pure visual aids. They point at the correct Miis if they're able to find them first. And before you ask, yes, this is allowed. Creating a rule against receiving help in Find Me would not only be super lame, but also completely unenforceable for pretty obvious reasons. The Sir Goku Find Me team consists of Joey, a Sonic Heroes speedrun world record holder, Henry, a top 100 Smash Melee player, and Spence, the guy holding the Wii remote. Together, they form the Boys. When they heard of the Find Me renaissance that was taking place, they were on the case immediately. Throughout the run of October, they put their all into derusting. It had been 2 years after all. But as November came around, in a new era and on a new couch, they felt more confident than ever.
Alright, I think this might be the one, because we're right there right now, even without Henry.
On a level.
We tied world record.
God damn it.
On November 5th, with Henry missing but the spirit still there, they snatched the world record by 1 second. Don't call it a comeback, they've been there for years. This run was a true roller coaster ride, with a shaky beginning, a strong late game, and a bittersweet end. They knew they had something even better up their sleeve, but with them all needing to be in the same room at the same time, they could only do attempts once a week, so a faster time would have to wait a little while. In the meantime, there were records yet to be claimed, and MIDI was ready ready to pitch in himself. On November 13th, he set out to do the ultimate Wii Play Marathon, all achievements. This category combines the goals of Medal Marathon and highest achievements to effectively have the player complete every achievement that Wii Play uniquely recognizes in one go. Mitty managed to do this in under 4 hours, which was also the second time anyone's ever done the run at all, which is funny because the first time was also him. Another familiar face, Cole O, came back to go on one last tank spree for the year. On the 15th, he managed an 1809 in 50 missions, and 2 days later, a 4337 in 100 missions. These runs were as solid as ever. He took only 8 deaths in the entire 100 missions run, and only 1 in the 50 missions run, if I'm counting correctly. The 100 missions run in particular is fairly uncontested to this day. I mean, no it's not, because somebody beat it. How silly of me from when I recorded that voice line in March. The Wii Play party didn't stop there, because the next day was Saturday night, or Sunday morning, depending on how you look at it, and that meant the Find Me crew was back doing what they do best. In the wee hours of the day, they got on a run that was a decent bit behind, but remember that their last run had a decent bit of time to be saved in the last split. Their best possible time, a 16:48.
Bell. That's Glacia. Yes! That's world record by 1 second.
Oh my god.
Again.
A world record by 1 second again. I really couldn't have said it any better myself. Although they knew they could do better still, the Wisconsinian trio was proud of their work, but nothing could have prepared them for Murasaki's response. 16 minutes and 9 seconds. After 4 1-second world records in a row, I guess someone needed to drop a bomb. This run had 3 gold splits in a row. And the craziest part, it was 17 seconds behind before that. Find Me 99 wasn't dead, but the bar had been raised significantly. We finally arrived at the final month of the year, and honestly there just wasn't much left to do. But Minnie did make a return to Medal Marathon, getting a 6-minute record improvement on December 15th. With this run only being about 12 minutes off the sum of all 4 medal category records, he was pretty satisfied. The one more improvement he would make before the year concluded was in platinum medals, believe it or not. He made a slight change to his order, putting tanks before Find Me, and it sure did work in his favor. Just 3 months after breaking an unbelievable barrier, he found himself already considering the next one, 58 minutes. But for now, he had himself a 59:14, which is where the record stands today. So, date is April 10th. With the days left in the year counting down into the single digits, all was well. There was just one thing left to do. On Christmas morning, Theon gave the Wii Play community the greatest gift he could, a 40.02. To this day, this remains the first and only time anyone has ever gotten 340 points in a game of Wii Play Charge. 300 points from knocking down every scarecrow, plus 40 points from the time remaining bonus. He had made history many times before, but this was truly a picture-perfect ending. And then he got another any percent record 2 days later, because of course he did. And that is the end of our story. You just sat through every single mainboard Wii Play speedrun world record that was set in 2023. Probably more than you thought there'd be. Certainly way more than I thought there'd be. In just 1 year, a new record was set in every single one of these categories except 2-player tanks. And I know that's light work for many other speed games, but the Wii Play community is microscopic in comparison. Honestly, this thing these few runners banded together to do without even realizing they were doing it, I think it's something to look back on and admire. I think it's inspiring. I hope I've convinced you to agree with me. Thanks so much for watching this video. A few months have already passed in 2024, so as promised, there's a scrolling list of all the 2024 records that I wasn't able to showcase directly in the video. I want to give a huge shout out to MIDI and Balance Board for collecting the preliminary data I needed to make this. They're what started this whole project, and I can't thank them enough. If this video got you interested in Wii Play speedrunning, give it a shot. I've linked a few resources in the description for people looking to get started. The first is the speedrun.com leaderboard, which is where you can submit runs and look at other people's times. The second is the Wii Series speedrunning Discord, which has a Wii Play channel that serves as the primary hub of our community, so definitely join that if you have any questions or just want to talk. And finally, the third is Playpedia, a comprehensive directory of resources and guides maintained by MIDI that tells you everything you need to know about the game. I've been Cinephusic, and I'll see you next time.